Cooper comes up, hits it. Yeah!
Oh my God! What a goal! What a goal by McLeish!
McLeish. There's the goal! Richie!
Hello and welcome to the National Stadium here at Hampden Park for another official Scotland podcast, and a very, very special guest today, the new national team manager in Alex McLeish. Alex, first and foremost, thanks for joining us. A whole week back in the job.
Yeah.
What does the first week of a job like this look like? What have you been up to since you returned to Hampden?
Well, I just want to get stuck in, to be honest, and I've kind of come into the role, you know, trying to probably do too much too soon. But the acid test is obviously when we pick the team, pick the squad, and then come round to the games. I'm well aware of that, but I've got to try and do as much preparation as I can to make sure that the players are ready for these games. And any time in the past that preparation has been good, normally there's been a bit of success, so that's the big aim for Scotland.
What have been the first tasks then? I mean, have you had the chance to speak to any players? Is it something you will do? What have been the first tasks you've had to embark on?
I've not spoken to any players as such. I will do. I've spoken to managers. I've arranged a couple of things, you know, for the coming weeks before the actual announcement of the squad. So there's some groundwork to be done. I've been out at Oriam, I had a look, I spoke to the performance guys, and we'll try and leave no stone unturned in giving the players every bit of help that we can to supplement what they already have.
Have you made any progress on your coaching team? I know there's been a couple of names out there. Is there anything you can tell us on that front?
Well, I think the guys that have been contacted are all keen to come. There's no doubt about that. It's just about getting over the final kind of hurdle in terms of you know, agreements. You know the way it is. Mm-hmm. But I think everybody that I've asked is very willing to rise to the call of the nation.
Before we look forward then, let's look back. Let's take a bit of a trip down memory lane to your Scotland playing career, because not only are you here for a second spell as manager, you had a very good playing career in a Scotland jersey as well. So I think you're fourth on the all-time cap list. I'm sure you've forgiven Darren Fletcher for recently jumping ahead of you. What do you remember of your debut, Portugal, 1980?
I was telling somebody the other night there that actually played in midfield. Jock Stein at the time was head coach, and on the Sunday there was the Player of the Year dinner, and I narrowly lost out as Young Player of the Year to John McDonald at Rangers. If you remember John, he was a great goal scorer, and apparently it went to they had to count again, the recount, and John had just won it by one vote. So my disappointment was taken away when a certain Mr. Steen said to me on the Sunday night at the dinner, "Listen, hard lines tonight, son." He said, "But you're playing on Wednesday." And I thought, "What? I'm playing for Scotland?" And it was a couple of days of trepidation and thinking, I need to do something spectacular to play in this team. I need to try a Cruyff turn or something. Things that I'd never done in the Aberdeen team. But Jock eased the nerves just before the game started with a priceless comment. So simple, but so effective. He said, "Do you know why I picked you?" And I'm thinking, "What? No, why?" He says, "Just because of what you do for your club." I said, "That's why you're picked. It's what you've been doing for your club is the reason you came here. Just do the same. Just do the same again." And it kind of lifted the pressure a little bit, and I thought, right, great. And I settled into it. The good game, and played beside Archie Gemmell, and I made a good through pass, I think, for Andy Gray or Steve Archibald. I can't remember the scorers that night, but I know Stevie was on the sheet, and Andy as well. And I did a very decent debut.
You're now, of course, the man who can give those special moments to young players. Does that sort of play in your head when you're giving them that special experience?
Well, it resonates, doesn't it? You know, because now I can impart all that experience that not only that I've gained, but also stuff that Jock Stein gave us, stuff like Alec Ferguson, Andy Rogstra, Craig Brown, all the previous Scotland bosses. And you know, it's great to impart that experience to younger players. You don't really get a chance to do a lot of coaching when the players come, because you're merely borrowing them. As you know, they get coached 90% of the time by their clubs, and it's more about organisation, motivation, tactics when they come to international football. But if I can give them something extra that they can focus and stay in their brain, then positive. And you know, sometimes you have to say, well, look, you could do that better.
You probably don't need me to remind you, you never managed to score for Scotland. What was the closest you ever came?
Yeah, I had a header against Wales, underside of the bar, and I swear it went over the line. But you know, modern technology would have proved that. But
So you were a victim of the times then?
I was a victim of the times, and Andy Gray bundled it over the line. So I was more of a rubber duck. I must have went up for about five. Craig Brown used to say I must have went up for about 500 corner. No, must have been more than that. Over 77 caps, and I was the rubber duck, the decoy for other people to score. Flicked on Kenny McLeish winner in Israel. We've got them further on in campaign.
Just letting them take all the glory.
Yeah, you've got to keep the forwards are very sensitive guys. You know, you have to keep their egos up there, and you know, Kenny, there's a goal, Kenny. You've been a bit of dry for him recently. There you are.
Alec, you played in 3 World Cups. To people of a certain generation, it's incredible to think that we used to qualify on such a regular basis. Just how special was it? You talk about how special it was pulling on the Scotland shirt for the first time. What about doing it on that stage? Yeah,
you kind of take it for granted, you know, when you get to the World Cups, that it's just a normal thing for Scotland in that particular era. And now, you know, what would we give to get there? And nowadays, we know how big that would be for the nation. And in those days, you know, we seemed to be qualifying willy-nilly. You know, there was 3 in a row for me, 82, 86, 90. And to play at the World Cup finals, the one thing in our thoughts was you were getting into a bit of apprehension, thinking about, oh, it'd be great if we get through to the next round. We were already thinking that far ahead, and we never quite managed that. And I don't know if it was maybe a bit of anxiety had crept in 1 or 2 games in some of the qualifying group stages when we got there. But I certainly believe that we had the talent to have gone to a second phase, and that was my only regret over those 3 World Cups. But being on the stage was absolutely wonderful.
What about the baptism of fire in '82? Brazil, 3-1 down. Yeah. Right, Alec, on you go.
Jock Stein thought I could go on and rescue the game at 3-1 down against Brazil. But you know, seriously, he was sending me on for some experience, and when I went on into the back 4, I think I was beside Big Alan Hansen, and all of a sudden I realised it was a back 1 when Brazil scored the 4th goal. And the reason being that there was 5 or 6 of the guys man marking Zico, and you know what that was for? His jersey. In the last 3 or 4 minutes, you know, they were all surrounding Zico, and I'm thinking, hey, come on, there's a back 4's a game, and Adair ran through and scored the 4th goal. But it was a great experience. Seville, it was roasting hot. The air was very thin, and I can remember going on and gasping, you know, for air right away as soon as I arrived on the pitch, and that was only about 5 or 6 minutes to go.
I mean, on to '86. We know that it was a campaign steeped in tragedy. How do you look back on that World Cup?
Yeah, when Jock died, that was a dressing room, a very, very quiet dressing room. We'd all been celebrating just before, and Sir Alex came in and said, Jock's dead. That's the words I remember. And all of a sudden, the dressing room went very quiet, and nobody said a word until we got back to Glasgow and went away in the cars, and everybody went home. And obviously the aftermath of that, Sir Alex coming and then taking us to the World Cup. I started I started against the Danes. We the good performance. Charlie Nicholas was in fantastic form, and he got cruelly savaged by one of the midfielders from the Danish team. Put him out of the game, right down his Achilles. And I'm sure if Charlie had stayed in the pitch that day, we'd have won that game. But as it was, Denmark beat us 1-0, and it was a hard start. And the second game, I never made it because I had the Mexican belly. Sir Alex gave me a fitness test because I wanted to play. You know, it was against the Germans, and I was desperate to play. And I went out, and I realised after like 3 or 4 little runs, I was breathing really hard. And I said, no, I probably better get back to my bed and stay in there the whole day. And I watched it from my hotel room. Gordon Strachan, you know, scoring the goal, and I was out my bed and celebrating, and the leg goes over the hoarding instead of hurdling it. A great moment. But then the Germans come back strong.
1990, of course, is the tournament then when you play all the games. Costa Rica being one of them. I don't know if a friendly against them now that you're the manager is a chance for revenge. I don't know if I'm clutching at straws here or what, but it's funny how these things come back around.
Well, we certainly remember that game, and we would like to. I would love to start the campaign with a victory over Costa Rica, of all people and of all nations. And that game, I don't know. There was an awful lot of talk before it, and I felt that we were going into it thinking it was going to be. You know, I'm not saying we thought it was going to be easy, but I think it gave us a mindset. I just felt that the team was a bit nervous and anxious on the field of play. We didn't really express ourselves the way we should have. We were agitated and uptight on passing, and you know there was a tightness about the passing. There wasn't a freedom, and as you see some players doing it, you know, without even thinking. Well, it looked as if we were thinking too much in that game. And then a great bit of skill. They weren't a bad team because, you know, they actually got to the second phase, and I think they beat Sweden as well. So at the same time, we were seeded higher than them, and we should have taken care of it. But I felt at that moment it was a kind of old Scottish trait that we didn't believe in ourselves enough because we had been told that it was maybe going to be easier than it actually it was. When we have got our backs to the wall, we have that big railway sleeper on our shoulder, no a chip, then we seem to bring out big performances. If
I could take you back then to your first spell as manager, I was actually watching some of the footage in here in the museum at the National Stadium this morning. Some of it hard to watch, some of it great to watch. 7 wins out of 10. It felt like a great campaign at times. How do you reflect on it? Yeah, it was a huge. My life passed before my eyes in the Italy game when James McFadden, the ball went right across the 18, just inside the 18, and James is coming with his trusty left foot, and it was just too hard for him, and he didn't catch it right, and it just went past the post, and that would have gave us a 2-1 lead, which I don't think the Italians would have come back from, because we bombarded them in the second half. You know, Barry Ferguson had a brilliant game against Pirlo. He brushed them aside. And actually, I thought after the game, that guy Pirlo looks as if he's finished, but he went on for another 10 years or something. And I didn't realise, I thought he was older, just the way that Barry had destroyed him that day. And then the goal at the end was incidental because we had to win anyway. A draw wasn't even enough, but you know, the referee gave one of the worst decisions of his life. And I think it cost the referee, that particular referee, a Champions League final slot for himself that season. I mean, Italy were the only team, I think, to come here to Hampden and get anything, so there was some great times here at the National Stadium in that campampign. What were the other highlights in the home games?
Made it a fortress. The Ukraine game was wonderful, and if I look back, and then the Georgia game, I kept faith with the team that played against Ukraine for the feel-good factor. I just felt that, but you know, looking back, if I could turn the clock, I would have changed the team, because there was a bit of legginess there from Ukraine game. and such was the output and the energy that they gave in that particular game. And spectacular goals we worked on, the free kicking training, and James come on, and James McFadden hit a screamer, and that was Scotland at their peak, and we didn't just take it those final two games, couple of games.
I mean, listen, that night in Paris, a lot has been said about it over the years, but I think it would be crazy of me not to mention it. For a start, we're sitting next to the boots that scored the goal. James's boots are there in the cabinet. I'm sure you've been asked about it many times, but with all the distance that's passed, how do you reflect on that? Where does it rank in terms of your managerial career?
Well, it was a special moment. There's no doubt about it. You know, it was a good performance too. You know, we weren't able to play open football, of course, but we had a very disciplined team. We had Paul Hartley in front of the back four. He had made a real name for himself in that position over the previous year with his club, and it just all really went to plan. You know, they had a lot of possession, a lot of no clear-cut chances because we defended resolutely, and we restricted them to kind of flurries. But when James's shot went in, then I had to look at my watch and say, "Oh, wait a minute, this has still got a long way to go." Yeah. But the thing that really excited me that night was when I turned to the dugout and there was a surge. The whole dugout come right out onto the track, and that was a special moment. And that still gives me the shivers down my back when I see that goal again, and I look at my staff plunging out of that dugout.
What do you say to the fans, Alec, who think that you should have stayed with the country after we had come so close to qualifying?
I can understand that opinion will be divided. You know, it's modern day life, and you're entitled to an opinion, and it doesn't matter what happens. Somebody will say something positive, somebody will say something, in my book, negative about my situation. But I went down to England. There was 7 months to go before the next tournament, and I was itching to get back to day-to-day coaching. I was still, I'm still no an old geezer. You know, there's a lot of older managers than me still in the game at a very high level, but I felt that I couldn't resist having a go at the Premier League. And so people say, "Do you have regrets?" Well, you know, how can I regret having an automatic promotion, a 9th position in the Premier League, Birmingham's highest ever, a Carling Cup win against Arsenal when the odds were about 1,000 to 1, and keeping an Aston Villa team in the Premier League despite having to lose 30 million in wages. That's nigh impossible in the Premier League nowadays. So, you know, it's hard to regret it. Mm-hmm. I think I've come back a better manager. You know, I think I've come back to the Scotland job with more experience, and as they say, experience is forever.
It's scary to think that the previous stint was 11 years ago. That time just passes so quickly. Perhaps the game, well, I'm sure it's changed. I don't know how much. What do you think the main differences will be doing the job this time compared to the last time?
Well, I think by and large, you know, you can't reinvent the wheel. You know, I watched Barcelona-Chelsea the other night. I was in London at that game, and when you look at Barcelona's setup, to all intents and purposes, everybody looks at a setup before, when the kick-off is taken, and you go 4-4-2. They're playing 4-4-2. And then when you see the game developing, you know that they're so expansive and so brilliant on the ball and touch and movement and interceptions that it can be any shape. So I don't think the game is changed to the extent where, you know, you have to play with a square ball, and you know, it's still a game where you have to get the very best out of people. The motivation, as I said, I used that word earlier, is very important at this level. Tactics are very important at this level. And of course the organisation. And if we're organised and we can press at times when when it's there to press, and we can fall back at times when it's there to fall back. You know, I watched Chelsea. Chelsea said, you can have the ball. There was a couple of times when they pressed them, but by and large, they let Barcelona have the ball at the back and press them from the halfway line. So there's not that many changes that from the time when I was in charge.
What of course we do have now is that structure where Malky's here as the performance director. As the national team manager, how do you see yourself working with him? What will that relationship look like?
Yeah, well, I think if you've got the facilities and the tools, then you've got to leave no stone unturned. That's what I'm going to embrace it like that, and I want to use Malky and his team as much as possible. If I can help these players to get an extra wee bit out of these players, and the players are happy with that, you know, that they're happy with that help, I'm sure that most of them have got all these facilities at their clubs, and if they come and they see that we're doing similar things, then the players are going to be in a good state of mind. The psychological side is important, if not more important than you know, the physical and the technical side. It's huge in the game nowadays, the psychological.
Seeing you've been in the game so long, and you know things do move on, whether it be sort of sports science, analytics, that type of thing. How have you had to adapt over the years? I'm not talking even specifically about this, just generally as things move and practices change. How have you had to adapt?
I think you just grow with it. You know, when Alex Ferguson was coaching with Jim McLeish, Dundee United, the two of them were kind of equals, and then they say that Alec adapted and Jim never, and you know, which is why Jim never went to England. Maybe he had chances and decided not to, but maybe the ambition was different. I couldn't, I would never say Jim McLeish was wrong. He's a top man, a top manager, and one of the icons of Scottish football. But I've moved with the flow, which is what I'm trying to say. And when I joined, joined Motherwell, we didn't have much in a way, but I started video analysis way back then, and I kept that going, and that's always been very important to me as well. A, to help players, to maybe show them that they can do something better. B, to say, look what you've done there. Yeah, there's the evidence. You know, you can empower them. And so, way back in the day, I was using a lot of that. And then, of course, all the statistics started coming in, the possession, and Andy Roxburgh brought the stuff in from, I think, Russian or Hungarian sources. And it was in those days, it was a bit more Spartan. It was a bit of paper with boxes ticked and how many touches you had and passes, penetrative and passive passing. Now, that's a long time ago. So you get a kind of feel for that. And any club I went to, Aston Villa they had so many tools. You know, they had the Y Scout, they had the Pro Zone, they had other things. The one thing they didn't have was a database of players. I couldn't fathom that. You know, with all they had underwater
treadmills
and stuff. Yeah, they had all that stuff, and just a training ground to die for. But there was no data base in terms of maybe 300 or 400 players I could have looked at. By the time I left at the end of the season, there was one in place for the next manager.
I think it's fairly obvious the difference between club management and international management is the contact time with the players. I think it's something you mentioned when we started off. What are the main things you look for then when the players come and join up on those international breaks? What are you trying to achieve in that short time, and what would you expect from the players that come along?
Well, we have a kind of tradition. You know, the Tartan Army are well loved across the world. And anywhere I go, they say, "Oh, we hope you get to the World Cup. We hope you get to the Euros, and we want to see your fans again." And you know, they're so iconic as well. And that's the kind of spirit that we would like to have in the Scotland camp. Now, I think Gordon had that. You know, he definitely had that, and I just want to build on that, and if we can get a wee bit more out of it, then great. But the spirit and the want to play for your country and try and be on the verge of something historic, and your name will go down in history. Don't waste a moment. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we would implore on these players.
And the thing is as well, when a new manager comes in and on the back of so many failed qualification campaigns, everyone's always looking forward. You know, who are the next players that are going to get called up? What young players coming through and all the rest of it. What's caught your eye so far? As you said, you've been very busy this week. Have you come across any sort of young players that have been impressing you?
Well, Malky's gave me the dossier of players right down to 16s. And obviously, I don't know the 16s and 17s, 18s. I've been watching the results. I always look at the results every week and I see if the Scotland young kids are, and even the women's results. You know, Scotland won that game. So, you know, I kind of keep up with results and stuff. In terms of the young ones, then even this weekend I'm doing a double header. I'll see Rangers Hearts, I'll see Aberdeen Celtic on Sunday, and that's 4 of the top teams in the country. I'll try and get to see other players who are recommended, but you know, I'll have other people out and about, and we've seen the breakthrough of a lot of players, and normally they're associated with English clubs, but what has been really a breath of fresh air is the emergence of some players up here in the Premier League, and that's, you know, something. Obviously McGinn at Hibs, and you know, Suter, guys like that, boys that we have to have a look at. You know, I've got to tick boxes, and the thing I've always thought was very, very important was I've got to see them with my own eye, because I've never really had a success rate. You know, when I sent scouts away to watch a player and they would come back and say, "Oh, you've got to sign him. You have to sign him," and then sometimes I did sign him and I ended up disappointed, and I know that I can't go to everything, but I'm going to try and see as many as I can in the flesh, and in the coming weeks.
Then the ones who do catch your eye and make it into the squad, how beneficial is it going to be to have the trip at the end of the season? I know it comes at certainly a difficult time for some players, but how beneficial for you is that going to be to get everyone together, get them away and kickstart your reign, if you like, in that manner?
Yeah, well, if we qualified for the World Cup, we'd have been playing at that time anyway, so I know that the failure of not qualifying may rankle with clubs saying, well, you now have to respect us, but I understand that stance. But it'll be positive for somebody. You know, it could be positive for some of the young kids who haven't been playing. We know that maybe we could be going out with some new faces. Some may be left behind. Maybe some people have had a really long season and need extra rests, particular players, some of the older players. And we need to see what these guys can really offer at that kind of level. Can they deal with it mentally? Do they have the physical and the technical abilities to go with it as well? It's hard venues, you know, and it's that there is, in terms of the performance guys, will tell you there's again some difficulties in terms of the altitudes, and you know, so we'll try and make everything as comfortable as we can for the players, but I'm sure something good will come out of it. It's no use saying that was a trip that we shouldn't have organised. We've got to embrace it. And I've always believed that you have to keep the cup half full.
I know we're only a week in, but given that you're here and you've been busy, you've had a look around, perhaps looked in a bit more detail at players you'll have at your disposal, everything else that goes into it, how do you feel now in terms of confidence, optimism, that ultimately you can succeed in that goal at getting us to a major finals?
Well, I turned a few things down that I felt. I'd been doing a lot of firefighting in England, you know, at Birmingham, try and keep them up, and they were struggling. But we get an instant promotion, build a good team, win a cup. Then Villa try and get us up the table, but reduce the wages. You know, here we go again. You know, these are draining on your managerial career and on your health. You know, in terms of your mindset and stuff. Everybody likes to be doing a job with a clear mind and a positivity, and that's why I turned a few things down. That I thought, nah, I'm not doing that again. But when the Scotland job came up, I thought, that is one that I feel that I would love that challenge. And the reason being, there are a lot of good young talent comes through, just as was said about the Scottish guys, and also, you know, some of the young Anglos are doing extremely well. Yeah, there's a couple of positions where we're a bit short of bodies, but you know, I'm sure that we can overcome it, and the challenge is there for me to try and get the very best in every ounce out of these guys, and when they come and join the Scotland squad.
Alec, let me just finish off from me saying thank you for joining us on the official Scotland podcast, and I think I know I speak on behalf of Scotland fans everywhere in saying we wish you all the best.
Thanks.
And,
thank you.
Hopefully it's a successful journey for everyone.
I hope so. Yeah, I believe so. No hope so. Believe so. Thanks.
Cooper comes up, hits it. Yeah!
Oh my God! What a goal! What a goal by McLeish!
McLeish. There's the goal! Richie!